Welcome back to Society Case Files. My name is Robert, and today I want to talk about Marvel movies. This came up because I saw an article that said Marvel knows that it has a problem, but they don't know how to fix it. So I kind of want to discuss the fact that they didn't even really know what the problem was, and then also mention the fact that they did have an announcement that has some sort of idea on what to go next, and consequently, it's a little bit along the same lines as what I was thinking. If you like this kind of content and you want to see more, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Otherwise, I'm going to dive right in, and I should make it clear I do actually have some notes here, so I will be referring to the phone to stay on track. The first thing I want to talk about is how they got here. I guess that their concern is, why aren't we making billions of dollars every single movie anymore? And I think that answer is pretty simple. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that they've chosen to do that wasn't the best idea. And let's start from the beginning. With the Infinity Stone saga, if you will, 22 movies to get all the way through Endgame. And while they obviously had zero plan with Iron Man, I mean, we know this from when Jeff Bridges talks about it and basically calls it a super high budget student film. So they didn't really have a plan at that point, but it did launch the whole thing, and it was super successful, and it was really awesome. And they kind of seemed like they wanted to do something else by having the post-credit scene, but for the most part, I think Iron Man was just like, I wonder if this is going to work, and then it did. And then they got Iron Man 2, and so on and so forth, and build on from there, and we get basically to where we are now. So the reason I think Endgame worked and why we have this 22 movie fiasco that is utter magic, in my opinion. I recently rewatched all of them, and it was just awesome. I mean, it's awesome. You can't take it away from them. But it really comes down to discipline and patience. It's something that DC didn't have. You know, DC had the Dark Knight trilogy, and they were great, but rather than build on that success, keep Christian Bale on, maybe figure some way out. I don't know what they could have done. This is a whole nother can of worms, but they chose to just kind of let Zack Snyder do stuff. And that stuff didn't necessarily pan out because it didn't really feel like it had a plan. It didn't take enough time to build. And that's exactly what Marvel did do right. They basically built everything. Every character had their own movie, by and large, for the most part. So you had Iron Man, you had Thor, Captain America, then we had the Avengers movie. There was the Hulk movie. Pardon me, I forgot that. And then they just kind of built on that. And we got Guardians of the Galaxy and Ant-Man and Doctor Strange. And it all culminates to this crazy event that is the two-part Infinity War and Endgame. But after that, they sort of lost their discipline. And it becomes quite apparent that they didn't really know what to do after that. They were like reeling from this massive success, and rather than regroup, they just kept putting out movies, probably because they were on the roster. Movies take a lot of time. You've got a plan. You've got people's schedules to consider. If you want the actors to be available to make the movies, to hit the schedules you need, you got to keep going. And you could kind of tell because some of the stuff just falls. Now, some of it's great. Far From Home, I think, is a good movie. I really enjoyed The Multiverse of Madness, but those movies are kind of epilogues to Endgame. And then you get things like The Eternals and Shang-Chi and the Marvels movie. And while they're pretty cool, and I enjoyed Shang-Chi a lot, and to be honest, you know what? I got to take one step back. I like all the Marvel movies. There's only been a few that I found to be total missteps for me, so I'm not really the person to go to trash on them, per se. I think that there are missteps, and let's discuss that in detail now. For example, I think the fact that they had great success with some fringe stuff that nobody had ever heard of or very few people knew about, like, for example, Guardians of the Galaxy. The success of that emboldened Marvel to do things like the Eternals, like Shang-Chi. Again, I think Shang-Chi is great, but it emboldened them to try different things and sort of throw mud at the wall, and it didn't really stick in every case. In the situation of the Eternals, it got kind of hammered. And I mean, I kind of see it. There's a lot of characters in that, and they don't get a long time. It's a short movie when you have that many people in it. And the time span they cover is ridiculous. It's like a Doctor Who episode where you're watching and then all of a sudden it says 3 years later, and you're like, this is only a 45-minute episode, guys. This is a little epic for that. And I think the Eternals would have been served better to be a television show. I mean, they got plenty of these television shows, so why not make the Eternals one of those? I mean, it probably could have at least had 10 episodes that would have helped give it the time to generate. And I also suspect that the director had something to do with that. Not that they're bad. It's just the fact that their experience had been independent films. At least that's what it looked like to me. So to take on this massive project, maybe that was a little harder. But we can't say too much about that because this is the same type of thing they've done with Ant-Man and Guardians of the Galaxy. They get people who are not as accustomed to having the resources that are available, and they come out with some good stuff. I don't think the Eternals is any one person's fault for it coming out the way it did or having the reviews it did and all that stuff. I do think that it was just too much, too epic, and in a lot of ways it was just there to provide a stepping stone to get to the Captain America New World Order. It's hard to say that otherwise. One of the problems that I think they have for engagement when it comes to like bringing people into the theaters to see the movies is that there's just too much stuff to keep up with. There's too many TV shows. There's too many movies. And it kind of gets to the point like in the comics where they span a story out over 8 titles. Well, now you're expected to buy those. And depending on what era you were buying them, that's like $30-$40 a month. If you're a kid and you're living by an allowance, maybe you're not even old enough to get a job, it's going to be hard to keep up with the stories you like. And that has now transferred into the cinematic version, because if you wanted to see the Marvels, for example, and you really wanted to be able to catch all of the Easter eggs, you had to watch WandaVision, you had to see Captain Marvel, and you had to see Ms. Marvel, the TV show. I hadn't seen Ms. Marvel, the TV show. I had seen the other things. You got 16 hours of television and 2 hours of movie in order to have everything you need for the Marvels. And that's not to mention the fact that they're throwing back to other things as well. So you really did need to have it all. With the 22 movie arc, it was just films. They came out at a relatively reasonable cadence, and it was just fine. But after that, then we start to move into the television realm. We've got WandaVision, we got Loki, we got Winter Soldier and Falcon, and that's quite a bit. Long-form storytelling is awesome. Don't get me wrong. I love TV. I loved Ballard. I love Bosch. I love Reacher. I really appreciate it when things are given the time to develop. But when it comes to the fact that you're going to feel like you might miss out by not having watched a TV show in order to appreciate some movie that you're going to go see, that's a little rough. And they did start to sort of throw mud at the wall to see what was going to stick. And that kind of got, well, I mean, obviously it hasn't served them very well. There's stuff I still haven't seen. I haven't finished Moon Knight. I haven't, as I said, seen Ms. Marvel. I haven't watched Loki season 2. I haven't seen the show Echo. I haven't watched Daredevil. I mean, there's just it. Once you fall behind too, you're like, wow, I have so much to catch up on. It's kind of not worth it. So then it becomes harder to become invested in whatever it is they're trying to sell. If they want you to come to the theater to see something else new or whatever the case may be, you're like, I'm so far behind now, I may as well just kind of give up. You know, it's hard to want to do it. In the comics, when they would get to the point that they're at now, where basically, you know, the Endgame, effectively, this would be about the time that they would reboot the comics. And they've done it so many times that practically everyone has a different version of Spider-Man that they love, or a different version of the Punisher. All the characters have some reboot version that came about because the writers wrote to some epic proportion and then ended that world and started over from scratch. And we get a new origin story, how Peter becomes Spider-Man, or how Tony Stark becomes Iron Man, or how somebody else is Iron Man, you know, brand new people taking on the roles of these characters. And I just saw a thing that said that Marvel is now not rebooting, but resetting. This is where they could have succeeded much sooner than now. If they would have not done the epilogue movies and instead let Endgame be it, that's it, we're done. And then turned the focus to X-Men, to things like Fantastic Four, characters that aren't in the universe, that they shouldn't be shoehorning into the Avengers universe. You know, maybe Blade, maybe Ghost Rider, whatever. Bring all of those things and focus on a different universe entirely. You don't have the baggage of the snap. You don't have the baggage of character death. You don't have all kinds of stuff. All of it just goes away because now you're focused on something new. It's still Marvel. It's still a cinematic universe. We just get the opportunity to see it from the brush of people that had so much discipline before and basically ran out right after Endgame. I think that they might be able to turn this around. He was very specific. Kevin Feige was very specific to not use the word reboot. He said that's a scary word. It means a lot of different things to a lot of people, but they are going to reset to one timeline, you know, one universe. The whole multiverse thing caused people a lot of consternation. And I get it. It's a little bit of a cop-out. It's the cheap carte blanche sort of let's just do whatever we want and bring whoever we want. And, you know, it gets tiring after a while. I know a lot of people complain about it. Ultimately, I didn't really have any problem with anything I have seen so far. My biggest problem, my biggest gripe is that they don't let it mellow and it's just constant. You know, they're constantly putting things out. And on one hand, that's cool because you're never without whatever, you know, you love. If you really love Marvel movies and they keep pumping them out, that's great. One of the reasons that Disney bought Star Wars is because they wanted to produce a bunch of material and give it to people. And what we found out quickly is that maybe mass producing Star Wars was not the key. Even though we had tons of books and we had comics and video games and everything else expanding the story, just turned out that the people they put in charge couldn't necessarily put something out that everyone loved. It was divisive. And in a lot of ways, when Marvel went down the path of throwing the mud at the wall and not having another plan, they effectively did the same thing. People got fatigued. They're tired of it. They're like, oh, I can't see another Marvel movie. And then we get things like old school directors complaining about comic movies and people giving them a hard time, saying things like, oh, you know, the Marvelization of the movie industry. And this movie has Marvel-esque tendencies, whether it's, you know, the way the characters quip or however they act and that kind of thing. It's just very interesting because on some level, they've changed the movie industry completely. And even a long time ago, long before this became a thing for people like Tarantino to complain about, the Marvel movies already had people saying, if you don't put on the tights, you don't make the big money. And in a lot of ways, I think that they sort of took away the demonizing aspects of comic movies because they are so high quality. Things like The Winter Soldier, Captain America Winter Soldier, that feels like a Cold War spy movie. And it's an awesome movie. It doesn't matter that it happens to have superhuman people in it. It is just fun. And the more movies we got like that, the better off the whole genre was. And more people became interested in being involved. You got all kinds of great actors showing up. And, you know, a few of them still had their gripes. Glenn Close just couldn't keep her mouth shut. She had to complain about it too. And other people, they just talk a little bit of trash. But I think that ultimately there's a lot of ways to look at it. Some people used it as a launching board to do other things. Some people love it and just keep doing it. It doesn't necessarily have to be a terrible thing. These movies are good. They're fun. You know, they're entertaining. They're not even all that escapist in many ways because they have messages. They're, as some people would say, woke because they get into some stuff. They talk about the environment. They talk about racism. They talk about abuse, mental health in the Thunderbolts. And I don't have a problem with any of that stuff. The thing that sucks is that when they were getting around to Endgame, they probably should have stopped writing new movies for like a year and a half and just spent that time planning. Okay, we started this whole Endgame thing. We started the Infinity Stone saga, and we didn't really have a specific plan at the very beginning, but by the time we did, it came out really good. But now we've got the time, we've got the discipline, we've got the money. Let's take a minute and go, okay, what characters need to be in this? And let's give them their own films. And let's ensure that we aren't oversaturating the market, you know? Let's have another 10-year plan or however long and build it properly from the beginning and know exactly what we're doing. And make sure that they have the right overlap so that none of the movies necessarily feel like a commercial for the next thing, or they don't have to feel like they are specifically designed just to build some piece of information so that we understand what's going to happen in the next film. Because that's also a problem, is that a few of these movies have felt transitional, like they only are in existence to provide exposition for the next thing, and which is cheap for the character involved, for the actors involved, and it doesn't feel as good. I mean, if we're going to be in a universe where we've got the DC movies that now have a 10-year plan, according to James Gunn, and now we've got Marvel doing kind of the same thing, and they've been doing it a long time, had a lot of success. If we're going to do it, these guys have the money and time. They just need to be patient, and they need to do it right. It's not like they haven't done it before. So when they said, we've got a problem, we admit it, we're not sure what it is, in that article, I think that was just tongue-in-cheek because they clearly had to know. I mean, it isn't that hard to figure out that if they would have just let it mellow and not oversaturated and had a second plan, a real plan that wasn't what we got, then they would have succeeded again. Because people would have been like, hey, you know what I haven't seen for 8 months? A really cool new Marvel thing. But I mean, the way it has been going is it's like TV show, out, watch it. Oh my God, I've consumed it. Movie, okay, I'll go see that. Watch that. Oh, next movie. New TV show. And you're just like, oh, dude, I'm not going to turn watching Marvel into a part-time job just to keep up so that I can stay afloat. I didn't see the new Captain America movie until after I saw Thunderbolts. And honestly, I had some spoilers because of it. So there's another danger. It's not just that you're oversaturated or might miss some cool reference, but you might get spoilers on top of it. Not that they're overly sneaky about it anymore. Some of these trailers give up pretty much half the damn movie. But anyway, those are just my thoughts. The fact that they are going to reset and focus on a different universe with the X-Men and the Fantastic Four or whatever else after Avengers Secret War, by the way. So we're still getting an Avengers movie. And then this new thing. So who knows how long that's going to be? 2028, 2030? Are we going to be in the cyberpunk world by then? Who knows? But whatever the case, those are just my thoughts about the Marvel thing. The problem that they faced, it's hardly a big problem. They're still making money hand over fist. But what do you guys think? Are you a big fan of the Marvel movies? Do you think they should have done something different a long time ago? Do you think it's too much, too little? Do you want more? Let me know in the comments. But this is Robert with Society Case Files, signing off.